The night sky flashed white. Thunder cracked so close that the ground itself seemed to shiver. Ethan Vale tightened his grip on the steering wheel of his black sedan as wipers fought a losing battle against the storm. The GPS signal flickered, then died, just like the cell network. He cursed under his breath. The countryside was supposed to be quiet, peaceful, a short drive before tomorrow's investor meeting. Not a nightmare on wheels when the headlights finally revealed a wooden sign that read the Maple Inn. He almost sighed in relief. The small inn looked like something out of an old postcard. White shutters, ivy creeping up the walls, and a porch light flickering against the rain. He parked, grabbed his briefcase, and sprinted through puddles until he reached the front door, dripping from head to toe. Inside, warmth and chaos. A fire crackled in the lobby fireplace. The faint smell of apple pie hung in the air, and behind the counter, a young woman in an oversized sweater was arguing with the computer like it was a person. "Come on, don't freeze on me now," she muttered. Ethan cleared his throat. "Excuse me, do you have a room? Please tell me you have a room." She looked up, startled, strands of damp hair stuck to her cheek. Her eyes were soft brown, the kind that saw too much and laughed anyway. "1 second, I'm just trying to— oh." Her face fell as she glanced at the screen. "You're not going to like this. We're full." "There must be something," Ethan insisted. "Anything. I'll pay double." "Even billionaires can't buy physics," she said, tapping the computer again. "But," she frowned, "there is 1 room left. Technically. I'll take it. You might want to hear the technically part first." "I don't care." "Okay," she said slowly, sliding a brass key across the counter. "Room 3. But don't freak out if you find someone already there." He blinked. "What do you mean, someone?" "She booked before you. Lightning knocked out the system, so I couldn't close the listing. She's asleep by now." "Then wake her." "You wake her," she said, grabbing her coffee mug. "I'm off duty." 5 minutes later, Ethan opened the door to room 3, still muttering about terrible service. Warm light from a bedside lamp glowed across a cozy room with wooden beams, a patchwork quilt, and a single bed. 1. Bed. And in that bed, half buried under the blanket, was a woman. "Excuse me," he said sharply. No response. Just the faint rise and fall of breathing. He stepped closer. She wasn't old or cranky like he expected. Her hair was messy, her hoodie had a faded cartoon dinosaur on it, and there was a notebook open beside her pillow. He sighed, pinched the bridge of his nose, and turned to leave. But thunder exploded outside, the lights flickered, and then everything went black. "Great," he muttered. "Perfect," a sleepy voice mumbled from the bed. "If you're here to rob me, at least wait till the storm's over." "I hate dying wet." Ethan froze. "I'm not here to rob you." She sat up, blinking. "Oh, you're the guy from the lobby. And you're the reason I don't have a bed." She rubbed her eyes. "Look, I booked it fair and square. You can have the floor." "The floor?" he repeated, appalled. "Do I look like someone who sleeps on floors?" "You look like someone who should try it once. Builds character." Lightning flashed through the window, thunder rolled, and for a brief second, both of them flinched at the sound. She noticed the exhaustion in his face, the dark circles under his eyes. "Fine," she sighed. "Half the bed. Stay on your side and don't snore." He hesitated, pride versus exhaustion waging a war inside him. "Deal," he muttered finally. He took off his jacket, loosened his tie, and lay down stiffly on the very edge of the bed. She faced the other way, muttering something about rich people and bedtime boundaries. Rain pattered against the window like a lullaby. For a while he stared at the ceiling, counting breaths, fighting the restlessness that had haunted him for months. But slowly, something strange happened. His shoulders relaxed, His heartbeat slowed. The soft rhythm of her breathing beside him filled the room like warmth. Minutes passed. Then hours. For the first time in months, Ethan Vale slept. Really slept. Deeply. Peacefully. Without dreams or guilt. And though he didn't know it yet, he'd never sleep that easily again unless she was beside him. The morning sun crept through the thin curtains of the small inn-room, painting everything in gold and quiet warmth. Ethan Vale blinked awake for a second, confused by the unfamiliar ceiling, the soft sheets and the faint sound of humming coming from somewhere nearby. He turned his head and froze. She was there, sitting cross-legged on the bed beside, him hair messy from sleep, her hoodie replaced by a worn t-shirt that read Caffeine and Miracles. She was holding a steaming mug in one hand, her phone in the other, humming some cheerful song, completely unaware that the millionaire who had taken over half her bed last night was awake. For a moment, Ethan just watched her. The way sunlight touched her face made her look like something from another world. The kind of world where people still laughed easily and didn't have nightmares chasing them every night. He felt strangely peaceful. Then she noticed his eyes on her and nearly dropped the muggo. "Great you're alive," she said so dryly it almost made him smile for someone who almost died of thunder last night. "You snore like a dragoni." "Do not snore," he replied, sitting up, adjusting his shirt. "You probably dreamed it." She raised an eyebrow. "Dreams don't come with earthquake-level vibrations." "Mr. Sleepless Perfection," he frowned. "How do you know that name?" She turned her phone around, showing an article headline, "Ethan Vale, the sleepless millionaire who built an empire on insomnia and caffeine." It even had his photo, same sharp suit, same serious face. "You Googled me," he asked, offended. "You slept in my bed." She said, "That gives me permission to Google you. Besides, I needed to know if I was harboring a wanted criminal or just an overworked rich guy." He wanted to be annoyed, but the way she said it with that hint of teasing made him forget how to be angry. He grabbed his watch from the bedside table, noticing a small note beside it written in blue pen. "Coffee and breakfast are on the house. The inn's kitchen is through the hallway. Try not to glare at anyone too hard. They're fragile." He turned to her. "You wrote this. Guilty as charged," she said, slipping off the bed. "Come on, breakfast is the only thing keeping this place alive." Downstairs, the inn smelled like cinnamon and fresh bread. A radio hummed softly behind the counter. Old wooden floors creaked under their steps. Ethan felt oddly out of place in his polished shoes and tailored shirt, surrounded by hand-painted mugs and flower curtains. Clara, the innkeeper's daughter, moved behind the counter with easy grace. She poured coffee into 2 chipped cups and said, "So what's a millionaire doing lost in our boring little town?" He sipped the coffee. It was too sweet, but he didn't complain. "Business meeting nearby flight got canceled, and now here I am, trapped in a vintage postcard." She grinned. "I like that description, vintage. Postcard sounds better than old inn that leaks when it rains." They sat near the window watching the rain fade into mist. She told him stories about travelers who stayed too long. He told her half-truths about the city life he loved to hate somewhere. Between laughter and silence, something fragile started forming. Not romance, not yet just recognition. 2 people from opposite worlds finding the same kind of tired in each other. Then his phone buzzed on the table, flashing with a message from Harper, his business partner. "You shouldn't have gone there." "Someone's watching." Ethan froze for a second. The words felt heavier than they should. He stared at the message, heart beating faster. "Everything okay?" she asked, noticing the color drain from his face. "Yeah," he said, forcing a small smile. "Just work things, you know." But as she laughed and sipped her coffee, he couldn't stop glancing out the window at the shadow of a black car parked across the road. Headlights off, engine silent, like someone waiting for something or someone. The peace of the morning slipped quietly away, leaving a tension in the air that neither of them understood. Yet Clara leaned forward, resting her chin on her hand. "You look like a man who hasn't slept in years," she said softly. He looked at her and for a strange reason told the truth. "Maybe I finally did last night." Her smile faltered for a heartbeat, as if something inside her recognized that confession. Then she looked down, hiding the faint blush on her cheeks. Neither of them knew it. But the morning that began with coffee and jokes had just opened a door that would change everything behind that calm town. Behind that quiet inn, there were secrets waiting storms darker than the one outside. And Ethan Vale, the sleepless millionaire, had just walked right into the heart of it. The rain had stopped by the time Ethan walked outside the inn, but the air still smelled like thunder and secrets. The small town looked peaceful on the surface. Flowers swaying in window boxes, children riding bikes down muddy streets. But something about it felt too quiet, too carefully ordinary, as if the town itself was holding its breath. He checked his phone again. No signal, only that message from Harper still glowing like a warning. Someone's watching. Inside the inn Clara was arranging, books on a shelf humming off-key. She looked up when he came back, dripping with fog and tension. So Mr. Sleepless Perfection decided to take a walk. Did the countryside cure your business anxiety or make it worse? He hesitated. It's strange, this place. Feels familiar, like I've seen it before. She smiled. Tourists always say that small towns are like memories pretending to be real. No, he said quietly. I mean it. He walked to the front desk, his eyes catching on a framed black and white photo hanging. Behind the counter, a man standing in front of the same inn decades ago, tall in a suit with the same shape of jaw, the same calm expression that Ethan saw every morning in the mirror. Clara followed his gaze. That's Mr. Vale, the man who built this inn before it changed owners. He donated the land after the old storm destroyed half the village a long time ago. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. Mr. Vale, that was my father, he whispered. Her eyes widened. Wait, you mean this was your family's property? Apparently. They stared at each other, the weight of coincidence sinking in. Clara grabbed an old leather guest book from under the counter. The edges yellowed by time she flipped through until she found an entry written in elegant cursive. Edward Vale and Margaret Vale stayed one night weathered storm. Thankful for the quiet, then traced the ink with his fingers as if touching his father's ghost. My parents were here, he said softly. He looked around the walls, the old beams, the familiar scent of cedar, like echoes that had been waiting for him all these years. He didn't notice Clara watching him. Not with curiosity, but something deeper. Empathy, the kind that came from her own broken past. She could see grief in his silence even. When he tried to hide it behind expensive suits and sarcasm, "Come with me," she said suddenly. "I want to show you something." They climbed the narrow staircase to the attic, dust swirling around their steps. She opened a small window, letting pale light spill into the space. And there, among forgotten furniture, lay a wooden chest carved with the initials, Evitts Locked. She said, then knelt beside it, found an old key taped under the floorboard, and turned it open. Inside were letters, stacks of them, tied with faded ribbon, some addressed to Margaret Vale. Some never sent. He opened one and read aloud. Margaret, I dream of rebuilding this inn for Ethan one day, so he'll know that not everything I built was made of numbers and glass. His voice broke. He swallowed hard. I never knew he planned to give this place to me. My mother sold it after he died. She said it was just old wood and useless. Land. Clara knelt beside him without thinking. She reached out and touched his arm. Sometimes people destroy things to forget what hurts them. Maybe she thought selling it would bury the past. He looked at her, and for a heartbeat, the room felt smaller, quieter. The space between them, electric. The air thick with unsaid things. Thunder rumbled far away like a memory of the night they met. He wanted to say thank you, but the words felt too small for what she had just given him. Then a noise from downstairs shattered the stillness. A sharp metallic clang, followed by the faint smell of smoke. Clara froze. Ethan jumped to his feet. What was that? They ran down the stairs into the hall where thin smoke curled from the direction of the barn outside. Clara's eyes went wide. No. Not. Again. She grabbed a fire extinguisher. Ethan followed without hesitation. Rain started again, as if the sky wanted to join the panic flames licked the old wooden boards. She coughed, trying to spray the fire, but it spread too fast. Ethan wrapped his coat around her, pulled her back, coughing the heat bright against the night. Someone screamed from across the street. Call for help. The old barn's burning. Ethan turned his head and saw through the storm a shadow moving away from the flames. Someone tall wearing a dark coat disappearing into the trees. She froze. His pulse quickened. Clara, what is it? She shouted over the noise. Nothing, he lied. Even though every instinct told him it was something, the fire trucks arrived minutes later, drowning the night in flashing lights and confusion. When it was over, the barn was gone. The air, heavy with smoke and rain. Clara stood silent, tears shining in her eyes. That was my father's paintings. They were stored there. Ethan put a hand on her shoulder. I'm sorry, we'll find a way to fix it. She nodded, but her voice trembled. This town's been peaceful for years. Nothing bad ever happens here until you showed up. He looked at the glowing ruins, thinking about the man in the shadows and the warning message from Harper. Maybe she was right. Maybe his arrival had woken something dangerous. That had been waiting too long to burn again, the night after the fire. The air in the small town carried the heavy smell of wet ashes and secrets. The barn was gone, the walls blackened and the paintings destroyed. Ethan stayed outside long after. Everyone went to sleep, watching the smoke rise against the silver moon. Clara stood near the ruins, her arms wrapped around herself like she was holding her own pieces together. It wasn't an accident, she said quietly, her voice shaking. I unplugged everything before closing that door. Someone did this. Ethan looked at the ground, rain dripping from his hair. His phone still burned in his pocket from that earlier warning message. Someone's watching. He hadn't told her not yet, because something about that truth felt like gasoline near fire. He walked closer without thinking. You shouldn't be out here. You need rest. She turned her face streaked with rain or maybe tears. Rest doesn't fix everything, Mr. Vale. My father's work is gone and now there's nothing left of him. There was something in her eyes that made his chest tighten. He wanted to tell her that he understood loss, that he carried it every night when sleep refused to come. But he said nothing. Instead, he just stood beside her, silent until the wind swallowed their words. Morning came with a false sense of calm. Reporters showed up. Curious townsfolk lingered and police called it an electrical fault. But Ethan saw the melted wires and the cut insulation. He knew someone had done it on purpose. He went to his car to call Harper. No answer. His texts unread. His instincts started to scream. The world he had built on control was slipping away again. And somehow this quiet girl with paint under her nails was at the center of it inside the inn. Clara sat by the window, her coffee untouched, when Ethan entered. She didn't look up. She just said, It's strange. I dreamed of fire last week. The same way it happened last night. The same sound. The same color of light. She looked up, her eyes trembling. Maybe it's a warning. He sat across from her, studying her face. Every word she said carried weight, as if the universe itself whispered through her imagination. I don't believe in warnings, he said. I believe in choices, and someone made a choice to hurt you last night. You think someone wanted to destroy the inn? She asked softly. No, he said. They wanted to destroy what connects you to it before she could ask what that meant. A local officer entered holding an envelope. Found this near the barn addressed to Ethan Vale. The handwriting was sharp controlled. He opened it slowly. Inside was a single sheet of paper with 4 words written in ink. Go home before history repeats. The air went cold. Clara stared at the note. Who would send you that? He folded it carefully, slipping it into his jacket pocket. Someone who knows my past. Someone who doesn't want me here, he said. But he didn't tell her that his father had received the same kind of notes years before the car crash that killed him and Ethan's fiancée. The handwriting was identical that night. The power flickered again, thunder in the distance like a memory replaying itself. Clara knocked on his door, breathless. The lights are out again and the generator won't start, she said. Fear creeping into her voice. He grabbed a flashlight and followed her downstairs. The hall smelled faintly of smoke, though there was no fire this time. In the dark hallway, shadows stretched along the walls like something alive. They reached the basement door. It was open just a crack. Clara whispered. I swear I locked it earlier. Ethan stepped forward, pushing the door wider. The flashlight beam caught a glint of metal. A small object on the floor, an old pocket watch, engraved with the initials E.V., his father's watch, the one that was supposed to have been buried with him. Clara's voice trembled. Ethan. What is that? He picked it up, his pulse racing. Whoever was playing this game wasn't random. They knew him. They knew everything about him. He closed the watch, the ticking sound louder than his heartbeat. Someone wants us to remember the past, Clara, but they're not done yet. For the first time, she saw fear in his eyes. Real fear. Not the kind that comes from danger, but the kind that comes from truth catching up after too long and somewhere outside in the rain. A car engine started, headlights flashed once, then disappeared into the woods as if the night itself was driving away with all their answers. The morning after the power outage came with a strange stillness. The inn felt different, colder, like the walls themselves were listening. Clara barely slept. She sat at the kitchen table staring at the pocket watch they had found the night before, the one that once belonged to Ethan's father. She turned it over again and again, like it might whisper answers. If she waited long enough, Ethan walked in, his hair still damp from the shower. His eyes darker than usual did. You find anything in the basement? He asked. She shook her head. Only dust and memories. He took the watch from her and opened it inside. The ticking had stopped, the hands frozen at 11:43, the exact time of the car accident that killed his father and his fiancée. Years ago, Ethan's voice was low. Whoever left this knew about that night. Clara leaned forward. Maybe they're trying to tell you something, or maybe they're trying to break you. He closed the watch and slipped it into his pocket. I don't break easily, Clara smiled faintly. Not yet. That afternoon, a man arrived at the inn in a black car. He introduced himself as Detective Hall. He said he was following up on the fire, but Ethan noticed the man's badge was slightly off-center and his questions were too personal. Did Mr. Vale have any enemies? Any reason someone would want to see him harmed? Clara felt her stomach twist. When the so-called detective left, Ethan followed him out quietly around the corner. The man removed the badge, threw it into the car, and made a call. I found it. He said the inn is still standing for now. Then he drove away, fast tires cutting through the gravel. Then returned pale and silent. Whoever he was, he's not police. He said, I think he's working for someone else. They decided to search the inn properly, room by room. That night, Clara led him to the attic again. Something inside her told her the answers were hidden where it all began, among the dust and forgotten boxes. Ethan moved the chest aside, revealing a loose floorboard. Underneath was a sealed envelope yellowed with time addressed to Margaret Vale. His mother. He opened it slowly. The letter was from his father, dated 2 days before the crash. Margaret, I've discovered something terrible. Harper is not who he says he is. If anything happens to me, protect Ethan and tell him the truth about the inn. Do not sell it. It is the key. Clara's heart skipped. Harper. That's your partner, isn't it? Ethan nodded, his jaw tightening. He financed my first company. He said he was family. Downstairs, a loud crash interrupted them. Clara flinched. Ethan rushed down the stairs, flashlight in hand. The lobby was empty, but the front door was wide open. Rain blowing in across the floor, and in the middle of the wet tiles sat the broken remains of a photo frame. It was the old picture of Ethan's parents, and in the corner behind the shattered glass, someone had written a single word in black marker. Awake. Clara's voice shook Ethan. What does that mean? He looked toward the window, lightning flashing outside, revealing a figure standing across the road, still as a statue staring right at the inn. When the light faded, the figure was gone. They locked the door and turned off every lamp in the lobby. Ethan whispered, "Stay close to me, Clara. I think the past just came back to life." She looked at him, fear and something else burning behind her eyes. "If we're going to survive this, you better start telling me everything." He hesitated, then told her the truth about the night, of the crash, how he had argued with his father hours before leaving the house, how his father had mentioned a secret partner and a missing ledger, how he had promised to fix it later, but never got the chance. Clara touched his hand gently. "Then let's find that ledger. Maybe it's still here." They searched through the night, opening drawers, flipping through dusty books until finally, Clara pulled a worn notebook from the wall safe. Hidden behind a painting inside were records of payments, transfers, and coded messages, all leading to the same name, Harper Quinn, before they could process it. Ethan's phone buzzed for the first time all day. A new message, no sender, no number, stop digging, or the next fire won't be in the barn. The screen went black. The room plunged into silence. Clara's breath hitched. Ethan looked up at her, the light from the window glinting off his eyes. The fear gone, replaced by something colder, determination. He whispered, "They want to play with fire. Then we'll burn the truth out of the dark." And from outside, far in the woods, came the sound of footsteps echoing through the rain. Like the past itself was walking closer to their door. The next morning began with silence that felt like a warning. The rain had stopped, but fog clung to the trees outside, wrapping the inn in a gray blanket of unease. Ethan stood by the window, his phone in hand, waiting for a signal that never came. Clara sat across the room, reading through the old ledger again, her fingers trembling over the pages of coded messages, all leading back to the same name. Harper Quinn, Ethan's business partner. The man he had once trusted more than anyone. Clara looked up from the notebook, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if this is bigger than you think? What if Harper was never just your partner? What if he's behind your father's death?" Ethan turned slowly, his eyes distant. The car crash, the letters, the fire at the barn. It all started the moment I came back here. He said, "It's like someone wanted me to find this place and destroy myself." She stood and crossed the room until she was beside him. "Maybe it's not about destroying you. Maybe it's about something hidden here. Something they need." Before Ethan could answer, the front doctor burst open Detective Hall. The fake one stepped inside his coat, soaked his smile too calm. "Morning, Mr. Vale. Mind if I ask a few more questions?" Ethan didn't move. Clara grabbed a kitchen knife, her hand shaking. The detective laughed easy now. "Miss Monroe, I'm not here to hurt anyone." He reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded envelope, and dropped it on the table. "Consider this a friendly warning." He turned and walked out, disappearing into the fog. Like a ghost, then opened the envelope. Inside were photographs. Old ones, black and white. His father standing next to Harper Quinn in front of the original inn, both younger, both smiling. The words on the back of each photo were written in red ink. "We built this together. We buried it together." Clara felt a chill climb her spine. What does it mean? Ethan didn't answer. Instead, he rushed back upstairs to the attic. The letters from his father still scattered across the floor. He grabbed one more envelope he hadn't opened before and tore it. Open the handwriting. Was hurried Margaret. "If the inn ever reopens, Tell Ethan to look beneath the roots of the old maple tree. Outside thunder rumbled again, though the sky was clear. They ran through the wet grass behind the inn until they reached the enormous maple tree, its branches twisting like arms reaching for the past. Ethan started digging with his bare hands, mud and roots, tearing under his fingers until the sound of metal echoed from the ground. He uncovered a small rusted box locked tight. He broke it open. Inside was a flash drive sealed in plastic and a note. "The truth will sleep until you wake it," Clara whispered. "Ethan, this is proof. Whatever's on that drive could expose Harper. Maybe even explain your father's death." They hurried back inside. Ethan plugged the drive into his laptop. The screen flickered. Files loaded, lines of numbers, transactions, documents labeled Vale Industries, confidential, and at the very bottom a video file dated the night of the crash. He clicked. Play static filled the screen. Then came a man's voice. His father, Ethan. "If you're watching this, something has gone wrong. Harper is planning to take everything I built. He believes the inn hides more than history. He's right. It hides evidence of his crimes. I've sent copies to the vault in New York, but if I don't make it out, you must protect this place. Protect her." The video cut off. The sound of screeching tires echoed through the speakers. Then silence. Clara gasped. "Protect who?" Ethan looked at her, his heart pounding. "My mother. Or maybe someone else." Before they could say another word, the laptop shut down. The lights flickered again. From the hallway came the soft creak of footsteps, then grabbed the flashlight and whispered, "Stay." Behind me, the steps grew louder, closer until a shadow appeared at the edge of the doorway. Tall, still, and familiar. Harper Quinn stood there, rain dripping from his coat, his eyes cold as stone. "Hello." "Ethan," he said softly. "It's been a long time. I warned you to stop digging." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I know what you did, Harper. The car. The fire. The letters. Everything was you." Harper smiled. "Not everything. Some ghosts dig themselves out, and now you've woken them all." Before Ethan could move, Harper stepped forward and tossed something onto the table. Ethan's stomach dropped. It was the same pocket watch, his father's watch. But now it was ticking again. Loud, steady, every second. Echoing like a countdown. Harper turned and walked toward the door. "See you soon." "Ethan, try not to let the inn burn again." The door slammed shut, leaving only the sound of the watch ticking faster and faster. Clara grabbed his arm. "Ethan, what does it mean?" He stared at the watch as the second hand spun in circles. "Too fast to follow. It means he's not done. And whatever he buried here isn't over." Outside, lightning cracked again, but this time there was no rain. Only the distant echo of a car engine fading into the forest. And for the first time, Ethan realized they were running out of time. The ticking of the pocket watch echoed through the empty halls of the inn, each second louder than the last. Clara couldn't take her eyes off it. It was spinning like time itself had gone mad. Ethan grabbed the watch and threw it into a drawer, slamming it shut. The sound stopped, but the silence that followed felt worse. "Harper was here," she whispered. "Why would he come just to leave?" That Ethan looked out the window, fog covering the road like a white sea. "Because he wants us to panic," he said. "He wants us to run, but I'm not running anymore." She crossed her arms. "You're saying that? Like it's easy to fight a man who might have killed your father and burned my family's history down." Ethan turned to face her, his voice steady. "Maybe. Not easy, but necessary." He looked at her, and for the first time there was no distance between the billionaire and the small-town girl. Only two people standing in the middle of something much bigger than both of them. The next morning the town seemed too quiet again. The inn's phone line was dead, and the internet router had been unplugged. Clara noticed muddy footprints near the back door, prints too large to be theirs. She felt a shiver crawl up her spine. Ethan was already packing a small bag, laptops, files, the flash drive he'd found under the tree. "Where are we going?" she asked. He zipped the bag without looking at her. "To my mother's estate. She's the only one who might know why Harper wanted this place." The drive was long through Winding hills and gray skies. Clara sat in silence, watching the world blur past when they finally reached the mansion. It stood like a ghost from another life. Tall stone walls, overgrown ivy, and windows dark like closed eyes. Margaret Vale opened. The door before Ethan could knock. She looked older than he remembered, her face pale, but her eyes sharp. "Ethan," she said, her voice cold. "I told you never to come back here. You should have told me the truth." He said, walking past her, the inn my father's. Letters. The flash drive. She froze, her gaze darting to Clara and then back to him. "You found the drive, didn't you?" "Ethan." "Yes, and it shows everything. Harper stole from him and something else. Something you kept from me." His mother's expression hardened. "I was trying to protect you, Ethan, the night of the accident. Your father wasn't alone in that." Clara stepped forward. "What do you mean?" Margaret hesitated, then whispered. There was a second passenger, a woman named Lucille Monroe. Clara's breath caught. Her last name matched her own. Ethan turned slowly, staring at her. "No, that can't be." Margaret nodded. "She was the daughter of the man who worked at the inn. Your father was helping her escape after Harper threatened her family. She died in the crash with him." Clara stumbled back. "Lucille Monroe was my aunt. My father's sister. I grew up hearing she left the country." Everything spun for a moment. The fire, the letters, the pocket watch. All the pieces connecting into something more dangerous than they could imagine. Harper hadn't just killed for money. He had killed to hide the truth, then clenched his fists. If Lucille was in that car, then Harper's crimes go deeper than theft. This was murder. Before they could speak again, a loud crash echoed from outside, the sound of glass shattering. Margaret ran to the window. A fire had started in the front garden, spreading fast. Ethan grabbed her arm. "We have to go now." They ran through the hallway, smoke already seeping under the doors. Clara coughed, struggling to see. Ethan pulled her toward the back exit, but a shadow blocked their path. Harper stood there holding a lighter, his smile calm as the flames behind him grew taller. "You just couldn't let it die." "Could you?" he said. "You had to. Drag the past out of its grave." Then stepped forward. "You killed my father. Harper, you killed her aunt." Harper shrugged. "Mistakes were made. People got greedy, even your father. He wasn't innocent. He was going to expose me after all we built together. So I cleaned up the mess." Then lunged, but Harper moved first, throwing the lighter into a curtain. Fire roared up the wall. Clara screamed. Ethan grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the cellar door. They rushed down the narrow stairs as flames closed. Over the ceiling above them, the air thick with smoke. In the cellar, Ethan found an old tunnel sealed with wooden boards from years ago. He kicked them open and pulled Clara through the narrow passage. They crawled until they reached the forest behind. The estate both gasping for air. The mansion behind them burning like a fallen kingdom. Clara turned to him, shaking. "He's not going to stop, is he?" Ethan shook his head. "No, he won't. Not until he finishes what he started. But now we know what he's hiding." "And what's that?" she asked. Still breathless, he looked at her, the firelight reflecting in his eyes. "The truth about our families, and the secret buried in that inn. Whatever's inside, it's worth killing for Clara's hand." Found his trembling. "But firm then we find it before he does." Far behind them, through the smoke, a figure stepped from the flames unharmed. Harper watched the two silhouettes vanish into the woods, his lips curling into a smile. "Let them run," he muttered. "The longer they chase the truth, the closer they'll come to the real trap." And in the distance, the sound of the pocket watch ticking began again. Somewhere deep in the inn, even though no one had touched it. The fire at the Vale estate burned through the night, turning the sky into a red storm of smoke and light. By the time the firefighters arrived, there was nothing left but ashes and twisted metal. Ethan and Clara stood at the edge of the forest, watching the mansion collapse on itself, the glow flickering across. Their faces neither spoke. The silence said enough. The past was gone, but the danger wasn't. They walked until dawn, the road wet and cold beneath their shoes. Clara's hands were shaking, not from the cold, but from everything she had just learned. Her aunt had died with Ethan's father, the same man she had grown up believing was a stranger. Fate had tied their families together through tragedy and fire. Now it felt like history was repeating itself. They stopped at a diner on the outskirts of town. Ethan pulled the flash drive from his jacket, the only thing that survived the fire. "This is all we have left," he said softly. Clara stared at it like it was a living thing. "Then we make it count," she said. Inside the diner, the TV played the morning news. A reporter standing in front of the smoking ruins of the Vale Estate police suspect arson witnesses say 2 people may have escaped the blaze. Ethan's picture appeared on screen. Clara felt the world tilt under her feet. They were no longer just running from Harper. Now the law was chasing them too. "We need to hide," she whispered. Ethan nodded. "I know a place the old factory my father used to own. It's abandoned. No one goes there." Hours later they reached it. The building stood. At the edge of the woods, rusted and silent ivy crawling up the walls. They slipped inside the air thick with dust. Clara looked around at the forgotten machines and broken glass. If ghosts existed, this place was full of them. Ethan plugged the flash. Drive into an old computer using his own cables and tools he had kept for emergencies. The screen flickered to life. Thousands of files appeared, contracts, transfers, audio recordings. Then one file caught his eye, labeled Project Lucille Clara's. Heart stopped. "That's my aunt's name." Ethan clicked it, and a video began to play. It showed Harper years younger, standing in front of the same inn, smiling into the camera. "Your investment is safe," he said. "The guests will never know this place. Hides the servers, the accounts. Everything Vale Industries built is backed up." "Here," Clara gasped. "Ethan." "Froze, my father hid his company's encrypted data inside the inn. It wasn't a hotel. It was a vault." Another clip started a hidden camera recording. Ethan's father speaking to Harper. "You said no one would get hurt. Harper, this isn't business anymore. It's madness." Harper's voice answered calm and cold. "You can't stop me if you try. I'll make sure your family pays for it." The screen went. Black Clara covered her mouth. Ethan's eyes filled with fury. He killed them to protect his empire. And he's been using my father's secrets to build his new company. They heard footsteps echo through the factory. Someone else was there. Ethan grabbed Clara's hand. They ran down a side corridor, but the footsteps followed faster, louder. Ethan pushed her into an old office. "Stay down," he whispered as the door creaked open. Harper stepped inside his face, half lit by the light from the window. "I thought I'd find you here, Ethan. You always go back to where it all started," he said with a smirk. "How long?" "Have you been watching us?" Ethan asked, his voice low. "Since the night you checked into that inn, I knew curiosity would drag you straight to the truth." Harper lifted a gun, pointing it at Ethan. "I told you to stop digging. You should have listened." Clara stood up from behind the desk, her hands trembling. "Leave him alone," she said. Harper looked at her for a moment, recognition flashing across his face. "You look just like Lucille," he said almost softly, and then used that second of distraction and lunged. They fought. The gun clattered across the floor. Shots echoed, dust falling from the ceiling. Clara screamed. Ethan pinned Harper against the wall, the gun between them, both struggling for control. The sound of a single shot broke the air. Clara froze. Harper fell to the ground, clutching his shoulder, blood spreading across his coat. Ethan dropped the gun, breathing hard, but Harper only laughed. "You think it ends with me?" he said. "You have no idea what you've unlocked. The inn isn't just a vault. It's the key to everything your father built and destroyed." Before Ethan could answer, Harper pressed something into his hand, a small metallic device shaped like a key with the same initials Eve engraved on it. Then he collapsed unconscious. Clara knelt beside Ethan. "What is that?" He looked at the device, the metal warm against his skin. I think it's what he was protecting all along. Outside, sirens began to echo in the distance. The police were coming. They had minutes, maybe less. Ethan looked at Clara and said, "If we want answers, we go back to where it all began." The inn as they ran through the woods toward the rising sun, the sound of sirens fading behind them. Clara looked back one last time. The factory burning just like the mansion, the fire swallowing another piece of the truth. She whispered to herself, "Whatever's hidden in that inn, it better be worth every flame." Ethan squeezed her hand without slowing down. "It will be," he said, "because the next fire we start won't destroy it. It'll expose everything." Night had already fallen. When Ethan and Clara reached the edge of the town, the Maple Inn stood ahead of them, quiet, dark. Its windows black like blind eyes. The same place where it all began. The same place that seemed to breathe with secrets of its own. The wind was colder now. The trees whispered like they knew what was coming. Ethan held the metal key in, his palm the small device Harper had given him. It pulsed faintly with a red light, as if alive. Clara shivered. What if this is a trap? Ethan, what if Harper wanted us to come back here? He looked at her eyes steady. Maybe it is, but if we don't open, whatever he started will never be free of it. She nodded quietly, her heart pounding. Inside the inn, the air was still, the smell of smoke from the old fire still clinging to the wood. Ethan turned on his flashlight. Dust floated through the beam, like ghosts. The inn seemed smaller than he remembered. Every shadow felt like a memory waiting to wake up. Clara followed close behind, whispering. The ticking sound. His back. Ethan stopped. He heard it too faint. Steady coming from the floorboards near the old guestbook counter. They pulled the rug aside, revealing a hidden hatch secured with a metal lock, the same initials carved into it. Ethan inserted the key. It clicked once. Then twice the hatch opened, revealing a narrow staircase leading into darkness. The air below smelled of earth and metal. They climbed down into what looked like a forgotten basement, lined with stone walls and old machinery wires snaking across the floor. In the center of the room stood a large steel door with a digital lock still faintly glowing. Despite the years, Ethan connected the key to the port on the door. The light turned green. The machine hummed, and the door slid open with a hiss. Behind it was a chamber filled with computers, old servers humming. Quietly untouched by time, Clara's eyes widened. "It's a data vault," she whispered. Ethan stepped closer, reading the faded labels. Vale Industries Project, Lucille Project, Genesis Project Phoenix. His hands trembled. His father had hidden everything. Here his inventions, his research, his company's stolen fortune. Before he could speak, a voice echoed from behind them, calm and familiar. "I see you found it, Ethan." They turned. Harper stood in the doorway, a gun in his hand. His shoulder bandaged his smile, cold. "You did the hard work, now give me the drive." "You're insane," Ethan said. "You destroyed everything, you killed my father." Harper stepped forward. "No, I finished what he started. He wanted power without consequences. I just took what he was too." Weak to use, Clara moved slightly to the side, pretending to stumble, but her hand brushed the control panel on the wall. Lights flickered. Screens lit up. Video files flashed on the monitors showing recordings of Harper's confessions. His meetings. His crimes? Everything he had tried to erase. Ethan realized the vault was not just storage. It was a trap. His father had built it to reveal the truth if anyone tried to steal it. Harper's voice broke the silence again. "Give me the drive now, Ethan." Stayed still, then said, "You want it, come. Take it." Harper raised the gun, firing. The shot missed as the lights exploded around them. Ethan lunged, grabbing the gun. They struggled again. Harper shouting, "You don't understand. The inn isn't just a vault. It's a failsafe. It's going to destroy everything you care about." Clara ran to the console screens, flashing warning codes. Self-purge. Activated countdown 60 seconds, she shouted Ethan. It's going to blow. The servers are wired to erase everything and collapse the chamber. Ethan punched Harper once, knocking him to the ground. He grabbed Clara's hand and ran the metal door slamming behind them. They climbed the stairs as the rumbling started. The inn shook the walls, cracking dust falling from the ceiling. They burst into the lobby seconds before a deafening blast threw them forward, wood and fire raining down around them. The Maple Inn that had once held so many secrets was now burning from the inside out. Ethan pulled Clara through the door out into the rain. They collapsed on the grass, coughing, the fire reflected in their eyes. Behind them, the inn collapsed into itself, glowing red against the storm sky. Clara looked at Ethan, her voice trembling. Is it over? He shook his head. I don't know. But whatever was inside that vault was meant to end with him, and the distant sirens echoed once more. Police and fire trucks racing toward the chaos. Ethan looked down at the pocket watch lying in the wet grass. The glass cracked, but, still ticking, he picked it up, whispering quietly, "Dad, you won," as the fire burned brighter. A figure appeared near the trees, Harper dragging himself away from the wreck. His eyes wild with fury, he shouted through the storm, "This isn't over, Ethan. You destroyed the vault, but not what's inside. You don't even know what you're protecting." Before Ethan could respond, Harper disappeared into the dark woods, swallowed by the rain. Clara reached for Ethan's hand. "It's never going to end. Is it?" He squeezed her hand. "It will, once we find what's left." Behind them, the fire hissed and roared like a beast dying. But in its glow, Ethan saw something glimmer near the ruins. A small metal box half buried in the mud, the initials Ev etched across the top. He picked it up, feeling it hum faintly alive. The countdown might have ended, but something inside that box had just begun. The storm had passed, but the sky was still heavy with smoke and silence. The Maple Inn was nothing more than ashes, glowing faintly in the dawn light. Ethan and Clara stood in the field, soaked in rain and mud. The small metal box lay between them, humming softly like it had a heartbeat. Ethan brushed off the dirt, his fingers trembling every time he touched it. The hum grew stronger. Clara stepped closer, afraid to speak. "What if it's another trap?" "Ethan, what if Harper was right?" He looked at her, his voice low and steady. "Then we open it together." He turned the latch. The lid lifted with a faint click inside. It was not gold or data, but a small leather notebook, old and scorched, the initials Ev embossed on the cover. Ethan opened it. Each page was written in his father's handwriting, sketches, formulas, and beneath it all, hidden between the pages, a single letter addressed to him, Ethan. "If you're reading this, then the truth has survived longer than I did." The words blurred as Ethan read. "My death was not an accident." Harper wanted to control the vault, but what he didn't know is that it holds more than our company's legacy. It holds something the world can't buy. The names of the people he sold to, the secrets he traded for power. "You must finish what I started, and when you do, you'll understand that love, not empire, is what endures." Clara placed her hand over his. "The letter isn't about revenge, it's about freedom," she said. He nodded quietly, his eyes wet for the first time in years. He wasn't crying for loss, but for release. A rustle came from the woods. They froze. Ethan moved, instinctively pulling Clara behind him. Harper staggered into the clearing, his face pale, his clothes torn, but his eyes still burning with that same hunger. "You should have left it buried," he said. "You think destroying the vault will stop the truth from spreading? It's already out there." He held up a small device, a transmitter blinking red. "I made copies years ago." Ethan stepped forward. "So this was never about the inn or the money?" Harper smiled. "No, this was about control. And now it's yours, if you're willing to pay the same price." "Your father did." Clara's voice cut through the tension. "Stop this. It's over." Harper turned to her. You think you can stop men like me with words? Girl, you think love wins in a world like this? Then's jaw tightened. Maybe not every time, but it's winning tonight. He lunged at Harper. The device flew into the mud. Harper swung, but Ethan blocked the hit. Years of bottled rage exploding between them. The rain started again, pounding like thunder around them, until Ethan finally pinned Harper to the ground. The fight ending with both gasping for air. The police sirens grew louder this time. For real lights cutting through the fog. Clara picked up the transmitter, its red light blinking faster. She realized it wasn't sending files anymore. It was counting down Ethan. She screamed, "It's a bomb." He grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the trees as Harper screamed from behind. The explosion ripped through the clearing light and fire, swallowing the field. The sound shook the world. Then everything went still. Only rain and smoke remained. Hours later, the sun rose over the wreckage. Firefighters combed through the ashes. Police questioned witnesses. But no bodies were found. Not Ethan, not Clara, not Harper. Only the scorched remains of the transmitter and the old notebook lying beside it. Weeks passed. The town rebuilt. The fields turned green again, and whispers about the inn faded into legend. Some said the millionaire who vanished had died. Others claimed he ran away with the innkeeper's daughter, starting over somewhere far away. Months later, a small coastal town in Italy. A quiet cafe opened overlooking the sea. Its sign read, "Vale and Monroe Books and Coffee." Inside, a man with kind eyes and a faint scar on his jaw served customers, while a woman painted near the window, her laughter carrying through the air. When the last customer left, she walked over to him, placing a hand on his chest. "Ethan, you're still awake." He smiled softly. "I don't fight sleep anymore, Clara. I chase it." She leaned into him, the waves outside glowing, orange in the sunset. He opened the notebook on the counter, revealing the final page, his father's handwriting. "Fading but clear love builds what power destroys. Remember that," as they watched the sea together. Ethan closed the book and whispered, "Maybe this is what he meant." In the distance, a young boy ran past the cafe door holding a newspaper. The headline read, "Mysterious files expose corruption across global tech firms. Authorities say source remains unknown." Ethan smiled at Clara. Quietly, the truth had finally found its way. Home, the camera of the world might have forgotten them, but somewhere between love and loss, between fire and rain, two souls who once shared one bed in a country inn had rewritten their fate, and for the first time in his life, Ethan Vale slept soundly, knowing that the